Welcome, everyone. This is the April 2025 Open Mic with the HCL developers hosted by OpenNTF. My name is Graham Akers, and I am a board member from OpenNTF. We also have with us board members Roberto Bocadero and Jesse Gallagher, who are helping behind the scenes, and also Dan Dumont, who's wearing two hats. He's a board member, but he's also part of the HCL dev team. So we are your hosts today, and we also want to highlight and say thank you to John Paganetti from HCL, who's helping behind the scenes to get all of these sessions organized. First and foremost, our session is being recorded and is going to be available on YouTube after the fact. So if there's anybody there who doesn't want to have themselves recorded or shown, don't unmute and don't turn on your camera. Our approach for these sessions is pretty straightforward. We want to get to as many of your questions as we possibly can. So we ask that we give each person one question at a time. And if there's an obvious follow-up question, that makes sense. But otherwise, we'll pass the torch around. And if you have a second question, please do put it back into the questions panel and we'll come around to you again. You're certainly welcome to ask your questions yourself. Maybe indicate when you ask the question in the questions panel that you would like to ask your question, and we'll unmute you and allow you to ask your question and talk to the team. And just a quick reminder that it's possible that there might be a question that comes along that we don't have an immediate answer for, but obviously we will follow up and get those questions answered. And a reminder that if you use the openmic-at-openntf-dot-org email address to ask your questions in advance, obviously that gives the team the chance to review that material and be able to have a more solid answer for you. So those are your reminders. But the bottom line is open up the questions panel, start typing your questions in, and we'll handle them as we go along. A couple of other quick notes. We've done these a few times now, and the AHA Ideas portal always comes up as a way to share your ideas, more specifically to non-technical questions or product features that something is missing or whatever. That's not the kind of thing that we're going to discuss in this session. So if somebody has a, hey, I want to see such and such added to the product, we're going to refer you to the ideas portal, so you can make note of that URL right now. And also, just as we were prepping for this, we talked about Verse Web high availability and some detailed TechNote information that's available. So that link is there, and we'll share that out to the larger audience as well. And with that, we will do introductions for the team that is on the call. Simon, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce us to the Verse Web team. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Simon Hewitt. I'm the development manager for Verse Web and for Nomad and iNotes. The US Verse team, development team, is on the call, and I'll call them out so they can introduce themselves. We also have a great both development team and automation team in Pune, India, but it's a little late at night for them, so the US team is represented today. So just going to call out my team members, starting with Brenton.
Hello, I'm Brenton, and I've been working with the Verse team for about 10 years.
Chris.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm a developer on the Verse team. I started my journey with Notes and Domino during the Notes 8 development timeframe, and since then I've worked on different areas such as iNotes, Notes Client, and most recently for, I guess it's been about 9 years now, it's been on Verse Web. Thanks.
Thank you. And Doug?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. So Doug McDonald, I'm the project lead for Verse Web. I've been working on Domino, Notes, Verse, iNotes for somewhat about 20 years now. So great to have everyone here today. Thank you.
And Frank.
Hi, I'm Frank Pavelski, and been working on counting and scheduling functionality for a very long time, starting with Notes and Domino, and now with Verse.
Oh, thank you. And Wai-Hao?
Hi, I'm Wai-Hao Chen. I was a developer when the Verse Web project started, and I worked for a few years. Then I moved at that time I'm based in Hong Kong office, And after that, I moved to another team to work on another project. But 4 years ago, I moved back to US and back to Verse team until now. Yeah. Right.
Thank you very much. And Dan Dumont, do you want to say anything about yourself?
I'm Dan, and I've been working on Domino notes and Domino related products for about 20 years now. I jump back and forth between Verse, Nomad, and various other internal teams here. And like was mentioned, I'm an OpenMIC board member.
Thank you very much. And we have our product managers, Tim Clark.
Hello. I think most of people will know me. Tim Clark, been in and around the Notes and Domino environment since '94, so since version 3 of Notes, but now product manager for Notes, Nomad, and Verse.
Thank you. And Annalyn.
Yep, hello from the Philippines. Annalyn here. I've been with a Domino product for 11 years and counting now, and I've been with the product management team for more than 2 years. And I think this is my third OpenNTF webinar, so happy to be back.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So now we'll head over to Barry Onan, who's going to do Traveler and the Verse Mobile team.
Hi, everyone. I'm Barry Onan. I'm the development director for Same Time for, I guess, going on 30 years. Recently took over some management responsibilities for our Traveler and Verse Mobile components. So I'll introduce the team members here. For Traveler, we have Bob and Chelsea on the call. You want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, so I'm Bob Silken. I've been working on Traveler since that project started in 2006. I think I'm the last person left from that time frame, but I have had my hand in almost all aspects of the Traveler server and working with the different mobile clients, which we will hear more about. And the one part I have not touched much is the calendar stuff, where Chelsea is the expert, and I'll let Chelsea introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I am a lead Traveler developer working primarily on the calendar side of things, as Bob mentioned. I joined Bob in 2012, so it's been just about 13 years now on Traveler for me.
All right, thank you. And for our Verse mobile teams, we have on for Verse Android, Michael.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah, my name's Michael Burkhart. I've been working on the HCL Verse for Android app for over 10 years now. Super excited to go through some demos today for everybody.
Thanks. And last but not least, for Verse Mobile, for Verse iOS, we have our lead developer, Quervin.
Thanks, Barry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kervin Lloyd. I'm based in Manila, Philippines. I've been working with HCL Verse for iOS product for, I think, about 7 or 8 years now. And I started working with a Traveler as a level 2 support engineer, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we've got some demos. So we're going to start off with a Verse Web demo, and we'll hand it over to Frank.
So again, I'm Frank Pavelski, and I want to show you some of the cool features in Verse Calendar today. To do that, I'm going to do a brief demo here. I'm pretending to be a person named Doug Roberts. He's an architect at a company called the Glass Tower Corporation. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So I'm trying to organize my calendar for the coming week. And to begin with, I see I have an invitation from my manager, Jim Duncan, to interview a new electrician. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that. But I see that I'm busy at the time he's got it scheduled. It's pretty clear here by looking at the calendar that the meeting's going to conflict with another meeting I have. But let me go ahead and get that accepted now, and I'll clean up everything later. I know that starting next week, I want to schedule a kickoff meeting with my team for our upcoming Tower 2.0 project. Let's get that scheduled now and invite my teammates. So I see that there's a problem here. Verse is telling me that there's no suggested times for this meeting all the way out into next week. And I really need to get this meeting scheduled for Monday, the 5th, so that my teammates can get started on things. So I'm going to have to do a little changing here to make sure everybody's going to be able to attend. I'll click on Find a Time here so I can get more details about everybody's availability. You can see that everybody is quite busy next week. You can see a lot of blocks here showing when people are not available. I can see that my manager has many meetings scheduled. But I can see that I can also see that there are 4 people that actually cannot make this meeting. But I can see that there is an open slot around 9:30 that could work. Let me try scheduling the meeting for 9:30, and I think I could probably shorten it to just be 30 minutes. Now Roger's still a problem here. He's not available. But if he was not in the meeting or not required, then everybody else would be able to attend. So I think that's the tactic I'm going to take here. So we know that Roger was not going to be able to make this meeting. I'm going to make Roger an optional attendee. And now everything's looking good. I see the suggested time for 9:30 for all of the required attendees. Looks pretty good. Let me go ahead and save and send that. Okay, so I've got some more work to do here. I've taken care of the invitation from Jim. Can hide the calendar inbox here and let me just focus right on the calendar. I see I have the conflict I need to deal with here with this electrician interview meeting. Let me try to reschedule this stand-up. Looks like 11 o'clock would work for me, so let me try changing it to 11. I see I have an issue here. Verse is telling me that the room I have booked for this stand-up meeting is unavailable at 11 o'clock. So I could try a couple of different things. I could try to pick a different time. I could maybe try to pick a different room. But this is a daily stand-up call. I think the team, we can just do this in the corporate lounge. So I think I'll just remove the room from this instance of the meeting and go ahead and send that out. Okay, I also know that I want to schedule a new repeating meeting with the team to discuss the Tower 2.0 progress. I'm going to start that next week. Schedule a meeting here. 2.0 progress. Invite my teammates. And I want to make this a repeating meeting every week. I think Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will be good for 50 weeks. Wait a second, something's wrong here. Repeating events cannot be scheduled for more than 1,000 instances. I see the problem. I typed in 500. I meant to type 50. That's good. I'll go ahead and send that out. I'll go back to the previous meeting, previous week here. And I have lunch booked with Susan at Ernie's at 1 o'clock. I made that reservation at that restaurant quite some time ago. I want to let her know that we're still on for that. So I'm going to confirm this meeting. Okay, that's good. So that's going to send a confirmation notice to Susan so she knows that the meeting is still going to happen. That's really the key things I wanted to demo here. I only wanted to take up about 5 minutes of everybody's time, but there is one other thing I wanted to show you. It's a feature that we're working on right now. It's not available in Verse currently, and hopefully it'll be available in a future release. I see I have this OSHA prep meeting with Jim Duncan at 12 o'clock, and I need to get across town to the restaurant to meet up with Susan. I wonder if Doug could reschedule this meeting to an earlier time. Let's give that a try. So I'm going to propose a new time. Schedule it for 10 o'clock. Doug, Jim and myself and Michael Halloran are all available at that time, so that's good. But one of the things that happens in Verse in the current product is when you counter propose a meeting, the meeting is removed from your calendar. So you kind of lose track of it. The meeting's still scheduled at the given time. It's just you've asked the chair to reschedule it. That's not going to happen until they actually do that. So there's a new option that's going to be in this proposed new time dialog called leave a placeholder for the original meeting on the calendar. So I'm going to leave that checked and go ahead and send this counter propose. So now you can see that the meeting that I have with Jim, I've countered it. You can see that it's been countered. It says countered, and there's a border bar on the left-hand side that gives you some indication of that. If I open it back up, it tells me that I have countered this meeting to 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and it's telling me that I'm free at that time. So if I decide I need to decline this meeting, or if I need to propose it to yet another different time, I can do all of that here. And it's easy for me to find that meeting on my calendar because it still displays there. That's it for my demo.
Excellent.
Thanks. Turn it over to Waiho now, I think.
Yep, Waiho next.
Okay, I'm going to demo a DOMI feature with same time. DOMI, D-O-M-I, stand for Domino Online Meeting Integration. This is required that the same time server and Verse server in the same SSO environment. And DOMI feature is only supported in Domino 12.02 fixed web 2 or greater. It can be enabled by admin in the logs.ini. So when the admin enable this feature, for the user, if they go to the Verse setting page, go to the calendar section, you will see the same time service is enabled by administrator. There's others DOMI service can be enabled by admin, like the following these things. For this service, the user need to get the token from that service to enter. So there's a dialog there, but for the same time, it's all enabled by administrator. So user doesn't need to do anything about that. So once it's enabled, when the user click on the new event, you see this is the option shown here, same time. As you see, it states that a same time meeting will be created when the event is scheduled. So now I'm going ahead to schedule a meeting. So I save and send. So now you see this same time meeting is already created. So if I click on it, it will go to the same time meeting. And if you go to the same time's homepage, you will see a new meeting is created. Let me go back to my event. If the chair cancel the event, the same time meeting will be also removed automatically. So if I cancel it, let me go back to the same time server, refresh it. Yep, the meeting get removed. So yeah, that's my quick demo. Thank you.
All right, over to Michael next.
What we're looking at right here is an emulator running our latest HCL Verse for Android client. This is the main launcher screen, and what I'm going to be going through today is a collection of new features in the free busy area of our calendar. It beautifully dovetails from the previous demos we just saw, interacting with the find a time information, suggested times as well. So let's go ahead and tap on the calendar. And this test user's only got a little bit of existing data. We're going to go ahead and start by creating a new meeting. And immediately we'll see that there's a new visual that we've created. We've completely re-implemented the event editor on the mobile client, a much more updated experience. Also includes a lot of new capability. So we'll start off here just by getting a subject in here. This is demo meeting. And we can see down below this, there's a collection of information about the meeting. There's an initial time for the meeting that's been suggested from 11 to 12 based upon the current time of day at this point. We can see the duration of the meeting has a default set to 1 hour. we can see there's a set of suggested times at this point, which includes 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And then the default here is set to required invitees. So I can immediately see that I'm actually, as a chair, I haven't invited anybody. I'm busy because my suggested time is not currently listed. So let's go ahead and just select the first available slot here at 12 noon. And at this point, I can tell that I've got an available slot. Again, I haven't added anybody yet, but that time is available for me in the list. Let's go ahead and start by inviting a couple people here. So I want to start by adding another user. We've got a user, test26, who actually has a meeting from 1 to 2. And so what you previously saw in the suggested time section here was that there was a 12, a 1, a 2, a 3. The 1 o'clock has now been removed from the list of available times in my suggested times because that user and I are not available. Both of us are not available at that time. So suggested times gives you just this quick ability to see available slots for those included in whatever attendee or invitee list you've got. Right now it's set to required invitees. So the next thing I'll do is go ahead and add someone to the optional field. So I'm going to add a user, test27, to optional field. The test27 user actually has a meeting from 12 to 1, but we'll see the 12 to 1 slot is still showing as available right now. Again, that's because the constraint, the filter we've put on our availability says we're only concerned with required invitees. So I'm going to go ahead and select all invitees, and all of a sudden now that 12 o'clock slot is no longer available as a suggested time, but I can see I still have multiple times throughout the day that I could select for these two users as a means of finding an available slot. So this gives us a quick way to find a slot for users and control whether we want to include all or required invitees as we're scheduling meetings. We also still have the traditional ability to select dates and times here if needed, if we want to do something a little bit kind of non-standard. But this ability to see suggested times for the set of users based upon this constraint is an incredible move forward from a mobile scheduling perspective. Prior to this, we really had kind of a blind model on the meeting scheduling. We couldn't see availability of invitees in any way. Now we've got it suggested times, and that's been available in our product for, I think, about 4 months now. We've got suggested times deployed. You'll also see we do have a find a time capability here, which I'm going to go ahead and tap. So if we want to get more details and look around a little bit more, we can tap on this, and it gives us a visualization of the day that we're looking at in terms of invitee availability. We can see we had 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock as available times before. I can tap on this dialog to get more details about specific attendee availability. Now recall, I actually came into this with it set to all invitees, so I'm going to be constrained by all invitees at this point. I can move this thing up and down, and as I move it up and down, I'll be able to get more details about availability. So this says from 1 to 2, 1 out of 3 are busy. So test26, as I mentioned, had a meeting during that slot. So, and if I go back to 12 to 1, we'll see that we had a block there with the optional invitee test27. And if we go all the way back to the top one here, everybody's busy because this is the scheduled lunchtime in this time zone. So we've got ability to really move quickly around this timeline to pick a slot. We can also adjust the meeting duration by pulling these tabs on the edges as we need to adjust this to be whatever duration meeting we'd like. We can also swipe to the left and the right to look for different days, and you can see the top calendar visualization moving with us. If we want to do more broad calendar interactions, we can expand this calendar to go weeks in advance to get data based upon whatever that future date might be, and then we can again collapse it back and forth. And as we then return from this find a time experience on the phone, all of our data here has been updated in our meeting to match that, and we're ready to go ahead and schedule that meeting based upon this set of attendees. So that's the experience we have for the free busy capabilities with suggested times and find a time on phone. Now we're going to switch to an actual tablet visualization. So I'm going to go ahead and open this screen, and let me go ahead and zoom it up here so we can fit. All right. So this is a tablet visualization of the same experience. So you're running on either a wide phone or an actual tablet itself. You can now see the visualization of availability here on the right side while we have the regular event editor capabilities here on the left. And so as I'm making changes from this side, the visuals on the right are changing, and it's taking me to new places as I'm dragging here and getting to new spots. All those details are updating. I still have the ability to see all my availability here, and I can still get all the regular capabilities here. But from a tablet perspective, we've got all of the stuff integrated in one screen to be able to do much more complex availability scheduling for meetings on the mobile device. and are super excited for our users to be able to leverage this. This was actually delivered in our last release last month, and then we're doing some small enhancements to it, such as this visualization here. We've been working on some visual cleanup of this. That'll be coming out in the release, actually deploying next week. That's it from a demo perspective for the Verse Android. I'll hand it back.
All right, we can switch into question and answer mode here. So a reminder to everybody on the call, use the GoToMeeting panel, and I am not going to share. Use the GoToMeeting panel and ask your question in there. And again, remind us if you would like to ask your question yourself or have me ask it for you. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, we've got some other stuff that we can jump into. So question for the Verse Web team, and feel free to hand this around as you like. What's the current version of Verse Web, and what are some of your favorite features you as developers like to utilize every day?
Okay, so yeah, the current version for Verse Web is 3.2.4. And the team has been hard at work developing features for 3.2.5, which we aim to have released this summer. We typically plan to have 3 releases per year. 3.2.4 is also, it's included in the Domino 14.5 and is installed by the installer. Let's see, so favorite feature or features for me personally is we've been showing it a lot here, but I love using the availability visualizer in Calendar. Not it would, selfishly from a developer's perspective, it was a challenging feature to work on, but an exciting one, and it's always great when you're working with aggregating data into a visual experience that is powerful. I use it all the time, even when I'm not scheduling a meeting. I'll use it and check people's availability before I reach out to them with the same time message, for example, just to make sure I'm not disturbing them.
Yeah, wonderful. Anybody else on the web team got a feature they'd like to share?
Yeah,
Sure.
I personally agree with Chris because the find a time dialogue is very useful for me as well. But I think I heard Brenton chiming in.
Yeah, I think what I use the most that always makes me happy to be able to do, opening up a event form in a docked overlay so that I can read various messages and come up with a advanced meeting without having to jump around to a different page.
Cool. Anybody else?
Yeah, and as a manager, and this isn't anything new. This is something that basically came out on day one. But just the calendar bar in the mail view, being able to see my entire day in one very simple but very effective view is incredibly useful. And you can access everything. It gives you what's next. It allows you to connect to your next meeting, and even passwords and stuff are very easily available to cut and paste. So that is definitely something I use a lot.
Awesome. Okay, let's jump over to the Verse Mobile team. So what are the most common problems that come into support for Verse Mobile? It's maybe a bit of a loaded question.
I know we had some questions around the timeouts and such, and that's more of a traveler server question. That tends to be kind of the more on the server piece of Verse Mobile that has to do with managing timeouts, which I know Bob can provide some more details on. I think from an Android perspective, the types of questions we get typically tend to come around a specific device integration. Sometimes something like a Samsung related specific issue where we're interacting with their native contacts. Sometimes we have issues in terms of changes from the manufacturer that we have to respond to. It can also be around changing versions of Android itself as new features come out and old versions are no longer supported. those tend to also raise some questions. And then sometimes it'll have to do with just kind of data management itself when some sort of maybe non-spec structured content enters the system and gets synced down to the mobile device. We've had some cases recently where some of the mails that were received didn't fully meet the RFCs, and so those were causing some confusion on the device. So we've been able to work through those and identify that type of issue. Bob, do you want to speak to the Traveler server support issues?
Sure, thanks, Michael. Yeah, so a lot of the ones that we get from the server side have to do with the clients and how they are connecting to the servers. And as things scale and get bigger and bigger, sometimes those things tend to be related to network timeouts. And so sometimes people have network timeouts that are very short, 4 or 5 seconds, which works fine normally for a web page. But if you're doing long running transactions where we're syncing data back and forth, sometimes those will not get done nearly that quickly. So we have it documented. It needs to be up to a minute for some of the clients. It's 4 minutes for other clients. Some of the push connections are even longer. So we're talking minutes rather than seconds as far as timeouts are concerned. That seems to be the biggest thing that trips people up, and sometimes is hard to find because if you're only just syncing 1 or 2 mails, it'll often still work. But when you get into the bigger data sets or that kind of stuff, then it breaks. So it's more of it breaks randomly or intermittently, and it's harder to diagnose and that kind of stuff. But I think that is the biggest thing that we have, and it varies across the different clients. It's not a client specific thing. It's all the different clients coming in over that kind of flow.
Hey, Bob, we had an interesting conversation yesterday where you highly recommend that customers, even if they settled on like 1202 for Domino, that they keep up with the latest releases of Traveler. It just makes things a lot easier, and a lot of people think they have to stick with the 1202 version of Traveler. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, thanks, Pags. So Traveler has always used a single maintenance stream concept. So the latest Traveler version, whatever the numbers say, that's 14.0, 12.0, back when that was the latest thing out for Domino, is always the latest and greatest for Traveler. And those Traveler releases support all the Domino supported releases that are in there. So right now, that means, if you have Domino 11, 12, 14, they're all supported by the Traveler 14. So you would always want to have the latest Traveler version because it has the latest fixes, it has the latest push certificates, the latest push interaction code with the Google or Apple servers. All of those things get updated on a periodic basis, and so you need to stay current. So even if you don't update your Domino and keep those versions together, which is more of what the Domino and Notes versioning numbers do, you need to stay on the very latest of Traveler so that you have the latest version. So if I have a Domino 12 server, I can run Traveler 14, and that is the recommended path so that you have all the latest Traveler fixes, even if your Domino servers are different and that kind of stuff. The only other thing in that path to remind people is the Traveler is mostly written in Java, but there are certain parts that are in the C code and are compiled into the binaries. So when you update the Domino version, you need to remember to reinstall Traveler because it needs to put the binaries for the Domino version that it's running on there. So for example, if you're going from Domino 12 to Domino 14, you need to remember to you can run the same Traveler install, and it'll just put the binaries down that are going to be used for interfacing with Domino 14 rather than Domino 12. If you fail to do so, Traveler will not start. You'll get a message in the console, of course, that kind of stuff, but it's a thing that also trips up people the most when they're doing updating of the Domino part underneath. But regardless of whether you update Domino or not, please keep your Traveler up to date with the latest version.
Good
question, thanks.
Okay, let's jump back to Verse Web. Here's a classic question about browser support. What browsers do you support, and is there one browser that is the gold standard for using Verse Web if you had to choose?
Okay, let me answer that. Verse Web supports Chrome browser, Firefox, Edge, and Safari. But for my personal use, because I'm a developer, I usually use Chrome because the difficulty is easier to use, so Chrome is my main browser. But for Verse feature, they are all the same for different browser. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, folks, reminder to pop your questions in for us. We've got some that we have in advance here, but looking for questions from the audience as well. Verse Mobile, what are the current authentication protocols and models supported by Verse Mobile?
Got quite a wide variety again that we can support on the mobile device. The default, of course, is HTTP basic authentication. It is not recommended as an authentication type because of the fact that it sends the password basic-C4 encoded, but that is the default, and we fully support that, of course. A certificate-based authentication is fully supported by the mobile clients, both iOS and Android. I definitely recommend that as a mechanism of supporting a mobile authentication in a much more secure way, and really keeping things quite simple from a user perspective. There's no kind of interaction on a daily basis with a certificate-based authentication. We do support a couple other more advanced authentication types, such as TOTP. TOTP is supported on Verse Android and Verse iOS, and while token-based authentication on a mobile device tends to not be kind of as clean as you'd expect it to be. There's some real issues with the fact that most of the token generators are on the device, and so from a security perspective, using token generators on the device is not a great idea. So a lot of mobile apps don't typically do token-based authentication because of that, but we do have support for that from the Domino and Traveler server perspective. We also support SAML-based authentication, which gives us a form-based model, which is, again, much more secure than the standard HTTP basic authentication. Again, all four of those authentication types are supported on both Verse Android and Verse iOS.
Okay. Maybe it's a good time to run our first poll question. Roberto, do you want to pop up our first poll question for the audience? So which of the following products are you currently using? We've got Verse Web, we've got Verse Mobile for iOS and Android, we've got HCL Traveler, whether that's for an Apple device, or Windows, Outlook, or you're not using the Verse yet. And while that's coming in, for those of you that have joined a little bit later, one of the first slides that I had in the deck included a link to a knowledge base article about high availability. So maybe while we're letting the poll question run, we'll jump into that. There's a couple of questions here. So both Verse Web and Verse Mobile about high availability. Who wants to take that one?
So for Verse Web, we have a knowledge bulletin that we've published that outlines a case study that we did internally that leverages high availability environment that has failover for many users. In the case study, there's a couple of mirrored clusters of servers, and users can be found on any server within that cluster, or potentially on multiple clusters. The key there being that the clusters themselves have mirrored context, so all the servers in a cluster are hosting all users on a server in a cluster are available on all servers in that cluster, but not necessarily all clusters. In the case study, we also had scenarios where users have delegated access to other users. Those users might not be in the same cluster. They might be in a different cluster. And it outlines the topology that we leveraged.
Graham,
Yes.
let's close. Do you want me to share the results? So far, we have 60% using HCL Verse Web, 60% using HCL Verse Mobile, either iOS or Android, and 20% using Traveler through an Apple device, the Apple Native Mail, or Windows mobile device, or HTML. 0% don't use Verse. So 60, 60, 20.
Good.
Right.
Good. Thank you. Did we want to talk about high availability? Go
We can
ahead.
talk about the other as well.
Yeah, please.
So if you're talking about high availability for the Verse mobile clients, it really is more about making the server highly available because the clients are just running on the devices and everything else like that. For making the HCL Traveler part highly available, it's really kind of a three-layered kind of approach. So the first thing is the mobile devices will need some URL, one URL to go to that then gets load balanced across the different Domino servers that are running the Traveler task. And that will allow them to have any of those requests go, and B, if a Domino server is down, go to a different Domino server and do that kind of stuff. Traveler handles the fact that the users can be on any of the Traveler servers, and Traveler can have the mail replicas on it itself, or it could not. So it can talk to any of the Domino servers. So you can kind of have layers. So if I have 3 Traveler servers, they can talk to my 20 Domino servers, and it doesn't really matter as far as the load spring is there. The other aspect that comes into play is Traveler is keeping some meta information about the users to know which Domino servers to go to and that kind of stuff like that. In a highly available setup where you have more than one Traveler instance on the different Domino servers, you need to have some shared location for that. So what we call the enterprise database. So you'll need an enterprise database, which can be MySQL, it could be Microsoft SQL, it could also be IBM DB2, and we are also being asked about MariaDB. It doesn't support that now, but that is really similar to MySQL. So if you have more requests for MariaDB, feel free to vote for that on the AHA entry and that kind of stuff. But that is just for Traveler to keep metadata. It's not keeping the emails or anything else. It's keeping mostly the UIDs of the documents or whether they need to sync or not as far as what that's going on. So you need a load balancer in the front. You'll have your number of Traveler servers. They can talk to any number of Domino servers. They can be the same server. They can be all the different servers. And the Traveler server will need some database server to store its local information on that it's keeping as metadata. So it's a multiple approach, and it's been in our documentation in the regular Traveler planning process area for a long time.
Awesome. And that link was just shared out in the chat. We'll make sure that it's in the YouTube description as well. Okay, a little bit of a pivot. Checking our openmic-at-openntf-dot-org mailbox. Again, a reminder that this is a way for people to ask their questions in advance of the sessions, which gives the dev team lots of an opportunity to look into the details of the question. We only had one this month, and it was more of a product manager question than a dev team question, so we're going to not include that in this session. But I encourage people, Bob just mentioned it, the AHA portal, which I hope everybody is aware of. But again, the link was shared at the beginning of this video and also included in the YouTube description. That's the place to go and ask your product management questions and get your suggestions in for the team. If the community upvotes them, that's the place that I know Tim and Annalyn and the rest of the team are looking at what those votes are and are deciding on what the next features are to include in the product. So that's where we want everybody to go to share their ideas for how to improve the product. Okay, what have I got here?
Hey, Graham, I want to sort of point out, I get to see this stuff every day since
Sure.
I work with the teams. Can Simon or Doug talk about the work that's been done around accessibility and usability? You guys have done a great focus, and I see the changes, on a weekly basis or daily basis sometimes because Doug's always rolling out builds. But can you talk about the effort that you guys have put in that area?
So we at HCL have put in a lot of effort over the last year to make our products fully accessible. This is, of course, driven by new European Union rules around accessibility that we definitely want to meet, but we also understand that it's also the right thing to do, that we have a diversity of users and we want everybody to be able to use our products. So we have been working very hard on that. Doug, anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's the last couple of different releases we've had a high focus on accessibility and improvements in usability as well, right? And that's going to continue moving forward, as well as with all of the new features we'll be adding. We'll be making sure that they're also fully accessible.
Yeah, and I would also add that we do, if you do have users in your organization that use these tools, we do want to hear from you. If it isn't, if it's a good experience, we certainly want to hear from you, but we also want to hear from areas that you might struggle, because there's accessibility as far as, doing all of the rules, as it were, but there's also the user experience of an accessible user, and that that can be more of a hands-on thing that we as developers may not see. So we definitely do want that kind of feedback if that is something that's really important to you, so that we can concentrate our efforts on where it's going to make the most difference.
Great. Okay. What else we got here? Okay, this one. Without committing to if and when it will ship. So this is a question about things that are features that are being worked on but not necessarily scheduled for release. Is there anything you're currently working on that excites you as far as delivering on customer asks for Verse Web? And if Tim starts waving his hands, we're going to pause. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Doug. I work very closely with Tim, so he'll agree with my statements here.
No surprises, right?
Right. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, I mean, obviously we've been working on accessibility, right? We just talked about that. And then one of the features that you saw in the demo that Frank showed about the placeholders for meetings when you're proposing a new time, right? So that's been something we've been wanting to get done for quite a while. So that is coming in a release soon. Some other things we're looking at right now, improved search. So in the delegated mail case, so if you have a delegated user sending an email to yourself, and you search for emails from the person whose mail was delegated, you want the right results, right? So we're working on improvements there. One of the other things to support our Japanese customers.
Doug, that's a really confusing topic for a lot of people that don't do delegated mail all the time. Can you give a bit of a more graphic example, right?
Sure. So suppose Tim delegated his mail file to me, and I want to send an email to Simon using Tim's mail file, right? So I'm sending an email for Tim on behalf of Tim. So it's coming from my user, but Tim's mail file. So when Simon gets the email and he wants to search for mails from Tim, the email currently isn't showing up in that search, and it should. So we've had to make some improvements to our back-end search code to improve that, because currently what it would do is if you search for emails from me, it would show up there, and that's not really who the email is from, right? So that we wanted to resolve that. We've had a lot of feedback on that from our customers.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep. Yeah, I can definitely get lost in terminology here that might not be familiar with a lot of different people. So thanks, Tim.
No problem. Roberto, let's run the second poll question.
So yeah, I just had a couple of things I wanted to mention around that. Yeah. So for people who've been or Japanese customers that are used to using in iNotes something called DJX, which is Domino Japanese extension. We are looking to support that in Verse as well. We will continue working on that and get that out in a future release. And then something that's kind of in the design phases right now is sending email on delay, like with a targeted send time, right? So that's supported in the Notes client right now. And we're looking to get that into Verse. So we have a huge, wonderful backlog of feature requests that have come from AHA, and like I said, Tim and I look at that on a daily basis. So keep putting your ideas in there. Thank you.
Thanks,
Graham,
yes.
Second poll is launched.
There we go. Okay. How long have you been using Versa Traveler? So that's for the people who are using Versa Traveler.
While people are answering that, Graham, can I tell you what I'm excited about?
Please, Tim, yes.
So actually the DJX thing that Doug mentioned is probably the most exciting thing for me at the moment, in terms of the fact that it's been a long time coming. It's been a really tough nut for the team to crack, and they're doing a great job of making sure that it's robust. But it also means that the way that Japanese users address their entire organization is very hierarchical, and that is allowing the DJX thing will allow us to mimic that inside of the address dialogues for users. So they'll be able to pick from a hierarchy of their organization based on the Domino address book or whatever directory they're using, to allow them to pick the right user in the right part of the hierarchy. And that's a really exciting thing because it's really complicated to do. But it also means that other customers will be able to use that as well. It won't be sort of just targeted at the Japanese market. So it will benefit everybody who properly uses their directory to mimic the hierarchy that people find themselves in. So that's going to be a win for everyone, not just that, Japanese Asia Pacific market.
Awesome.
Poll results are out, and 100% of the responses are more than 3 years. So it looks like we have no newbies in the attendee list.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a question from the audience, and this is probably a Tim question, I think. And okay, I'll just ask it. Can HCL say that the current version of HCL Verse, respecting that there are different types, has 100% of the features from iNotes, especially in the context of iNotes end of life?
I can categorically say that it doesn't, and it never will. And that's not the goal for Verse, and we will not strive for 100% parity between those two products.
Okay.
But with that said, put your ideas of what you need into the Domino AHA so Tim can evaluate, right? As we certainly want to hit the broader end users, and if you have, business needs and it's going to help us with renewals, we certainly want to know about it. So make sure you post and you vote up. Seeing an ideas there is good, but actually logging in and voting it up really helps as well.
Some of the things that we can do in iNotes, because of the technology it's written on, just are extremely difficult to do inside of Verse. And if we were to take some of those features and deploy them in Verse, it would probably take the whole team a whole year to deploy some of those features because they're that big. It really does then beg the question as to whether that feature is worth it. And if it's just let's take the example of the dialog box we've just seen. We're adding a checkbox to the bottom of the proposed new time dialog box to keep the placeholder there. If that were to take the whole team like a whole bunch of time, it's a stupid example, but if it were to take a whole bunch of time more than it is, then we'd have to question as to whether that's a good use of the time, or could we achieve more for people by doing other features with the team. And that's the balancing act, the horrible balancing act that we have to achieve as product managers. And that's why, as Doug says, I talk to him on a daily basis about stuff that comes into AHA and what the vote counts are and what we should think about next. And Doug will tell you, and Doug will keep me honest, that I am scheduling a meeting with him in 2 weeks' time that actually we are going to go through and work out exactly what we're going to plan out for the next 3 or 4 releases. So, we've got a list. We know what we want to get done. We know that some of the iNote stuff is really difficult and we'd love to do it. It's a case of, can we get more done and affect more people if that's the right thing to do? And we do a really good job of evaluating everything you put in AHA on a case-by-case basis. So please do, stick everything you want in the product in AHA, but, be specific. If there's a single feature you need pulled across, that's great. Please don't put in an idea that says, I need 100% of all the iNotes features in Verse, because I'm just going to delete it because it's not specific enough, right? We know that people want that. But if you need something, if there's something missing that you use and can give a business reason, tell us that, right? Really tell us that in AHA, because that really helps us.
And Tim, is it true at Engage if they get you at the bar, they've got a good chance of talking to you?
Well, they can find me anywhere at Engage, not just the bar. And don't buy me beer anymore because I'm completely alcohol free now. So just come and chat to us wherever you see us at Engage.
It's the age-old challenge that we all know about for years and years and years, and it goes back to I want to be able to do Domino Designer on a Mac, right? It never boiled down to.
But now you can, right? Nomad
I was
Designer
going to
running on a Mac.
Yep.
That is something good to point out is some of these features that still exist in the Nomad, in the basic client, you can do through your mail file through Nomad. And if all you want to do, you're trying to get rid of it, not have to use the Notes client, you may look at that as well as have Verse and Nomad Web side by side. And there may be some that little feature that hasn't gotten in yet might be a way to access it through the browser. It's clear people want to get more to the browser-based stuff, but they're both progressing very nicely.
I think it also comes down to technology has changed. I think we had this conversation when we were talking about Nomad and just how Domino Designer and Nomad is going to hit a whole lot of the features that we have in the rich Domino Designer client, and it's kind of the same debate when it comes to Verse versus iNotes and just how dated iNotes is. It's we're using new technology. Okay. We're running down to just the last couple of questions here, and we've still got a couple of poll questions. Let's run another poll question, please, Roberto. And Tim's got to run. Thank you for your time, Tim.
Well, everyone, thanks for using Verse. Tell us what you need. We'll try and get as much done as possible.
Okay, which platforms are your users primarily using to access Verse or Traveler? We've got the desktop web browser, Verse Android, Verse iOS, Apple on Traveler, or HTML Microsoft Outlook. Oh, and somebody just went all of them. Awesome. Yeah, choose as many as you can. Okay, just sifting through. Reminder, we're getting down to the end of the questions here. While this is running, what's the current version of Traveler? Did we talk about that? It is 14. Bob, you already hit that one, didn't you? I'm repeating myself.
Yes, 14.0 Fixpack 2 is the current version.
Okay.
And there will be a 14.5 that comes out with Notes and Domino 14.5 shortly.
And also in the early access program, they did post the Traveler version, I believe, that's going out with 14.5 recently.
Correct.
So
the 14.5 EA3 has a new Traveler included in it if you want to test and play with some of the new stuff.
I downloaded that yesterday.
We highly encourage you to use early access program, and like we said, the current version of Verse is in the Domino install kit. If you wanted to start playing with that current version, you can also either download it yourself and put it on your servers, or if you were playing with EAP3, you can, after you install it, you can enable it on your test servers. We don't like any late surprises, right? So that's what the early access program is, and the quality, I think, of all of our products has gotten. I've been doing this for 30 some odd years, and we've progressed. But there's so much in this product that it's always good to get it into the hands of our customers and DPs a little bit early, just in case something jumps out and you help us improve the end quality.
Yeah. Roberto, you can end that poll question.
We have 75% of the vote for Verse Web, 50% of the vote for Verse Android, 38% for both Verse native iOS and Apple native made using Traveler, and 25% of the vote for Traveler for Microsoft Outlook. So basically, Verse Web wins.
Well, I think more accurately that there's all of the different ways that people can use Verse. People are. There was a conversation when we had our prep call yesterday about the latest version of the mobile device, and there was just some clarity on how to think about that, because it's different than thinking about the latest version of Domino. Who was part of that conversation yesterday? Michael, was that you?
Yeah, just to clarify again, when we talk about kind of server and administrator delivered software like Verse Web or Traveler Server or Domino, the versioning systems there tend to be very important in terms of kind of knowing version numbers and things like that. With mobile applications, both iOS and Android, version numbers have kind of really faded away. We really talk about kind of the current release, and from a support strategy as well, the only version of our mobile apps that are supported is the current version that's in the Play Store and the App Store. So that model of versioning, really, we think from an Android perspective, we refer to ours typically by their month and year. We had just previously had our April 2025 release. We're about to have our May 2025 release next week. And so really just focusing on kind of the latest from the stores in which they're delivered is the version of software we use. And so while they may have underlying numbers, 14.0.15 and all these types of things, those are really kind of a service and support kind of questions, just validating that we're on the latest versions. But the deployment model for mobile apps actually is not through an administrator. The deployment model in most cases is directly from the stores to the devices. And most users use auto update for their devices. So within a period of time after our release, we have 250,000 active users on Android. Within, I think, a week to 2 weeks, we have 80% of those deployed with the latest version of our software. So versioning from a mobile app perspective is very different, certainly than something like the Domino server, which needs to be very carefully kind of managed and maintained, and versions are very important there. So yeah, Corbin, do you want to say anything else about it from an iOS perspective?
Yeah, no, I think you said it correctly. I mean, for us, for the Verse iOS team, we also only just distribute only through one channel, unlike Verse Android. I think you also have other distribution channels for the Verse Android app, but for Verse iOS, we only distribute over the App Store. There's always only going to be one version that will get distributed to all of the users. The other thing I think that we want to touch on is the device level, the actual OS level that each user can use. So like there are multiple users who would have phones that can only support until like OS 12, OS 13, 14, and so on and so forth. And really what you will find there on the App Store is the maximum version that is available for your device OS level. So for users right now, our Verse iOS 14.05, which is our June release, sorry, not June, our April release rather, is supporting iOS levels 17 and 18. So there's two iOS levels that we support, and we always just try to support the current OS level that's out there in the market and the previous version, which is usually just the past year. There were times where we support three versions like 16, 17, and 18, but since the release, we always try to maintain only two versions, only two OS versions for supportability. So if you're running on, unfortunately, if you're running OS 16, the maximum version of Verse iOS that you will be able to download will most likely be, if I know at the top of my head, probably 14.03. So that's the maximum version you'll get, and that's how far you can go basically. So if you want to get to the newer versions of Verse iOS, you would most likely need to upgrade your phone, unfortunately. But that's I think what I wanted to add to the question.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just to specify a little difference between Android and iOS, iOS again at this point, as you mentioned, supports 2 active versions. Android at this point supports 7 active versions. So we support from Android 9 all the way to Android 16, and so we actually have quite a bit more of that device capability. Android 9 devices are typically from about 7-8 years ago. So we do tend to have a bit of a longer cycle there in terms of support on the Android side. But the device manufacturers are getting better about allowing more upgrades. So even some of the older devices now can be pushed up to newer versions. But we do have support across that entire set on Android. Again, iOS so much better at kind of managing their ecosystem. They don't have, we have 13,000 unique devices that our application runs on. I think iOS would have, I have 10. And so it's like, because they own the physical hardware ecosystem, they're very different than all these different manufacturers that the Android side has to support, and kind of causes us to be a little bit broader with our support position. But thank you for bringing up the OS support, Corbin. Great point.
Yeah.
So I would like to kind of round off this conversation with how Verse Web does things. So Verse Web is very similar to Traveler in the sense that for the most part we have a single stream. the latest release will run on any version of Domino that is in market. So again, right now, 11, 12, 14, and of course, the upcoming 14.5. So again, very, very similar deployment model to Traveler, and we release approximately 3 times a year.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the one thing to take away from that is certainly in the case of the mobile devices, the cadence is a quicker cadence than the installed server level software, which is just a natural byproduct of the way the market works. But if anything, what it illustrates is the HCL team is very agile in terms of being able to pay attention to what's going on in the market and is able to release new features faster. For the mobile devices, anyway. Not a slag on the server teams. Okay, we've got we're down to I think our last question, and we got another poll question actually. Let's do our last poll question, please, Roberto. So the last question: how frequently do you or your end users access Verse or Traveler? I was kind of thinking that we would see daily on almost 100% of the responses here. As expected,
Okay.
everybody uses 100% of the time daily, which is fantastic to see. Okay, so Guillaume asks, there's an aha idea for delegated mail-in database in Verse Mobile. Annalyn, is there anything you can share on that topic?
Yep, sure. And thank you for the question. So the delegation feature is high in our backlog, and what I can say right now is it's part of the roadmap for Verse Mobile. It is planned for a future update, but at the moment, unfortunately, we do not have a timeline that we can share publicly yet.
Good. Okay.
Can I,
Glad that enough
can I,
people have voted it up. Yes.
can I add one note to that real quick about
Please.
mail-in database? It's a slight variation on this, but I just want to take the opportunity to try to share a little extra information on the Verse Android side, at least. Our multi-account support that we added about a year ago on Android allows access to mail-in databases as separate accounts. So this isn't the same as delegated mail-in database, but if separate IDs are created with their default mail file set to the mail-in database, those can on Android, and I believe as well on Apple Native Mail, can access the mail-in database from a mobile device. So again, it's not delegated mail-in database, and it does require an extra actual account to be created for it. But we do have the ability to access mail-in databases from HCL Verse on Android, and I believe on the native Apple Mail on iOS as well with its multi-account capabilities. But it has to be an actual separate account with that mail file, the mail-in database, as its default mail file for that account.
Wonderful. Thank you.
There's a related questions that I think Michael should address. Does the multi-account feature on Android allow access to account in different environment or domains?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can actually show, if you have a second here, I can show on that previous emulator I was running, I've actually got accounts on multiple servers that are completely unrelated. Can I share again quick to show that?
We've got time.
So on this specific device I was demonstrating from earlier, I've actually got multiple accounts set up here. I was wondering if there's going to be a multi-account. So these separate accounts right here, the top current active account is actually on a completely different domain, a test server. This next one here is my actual production mail account. This following one happens to be another user on the same production mail account, but there's no restrictions about what we're connecting to in multi-account support. Each connection, each account on the mobile device is completely independent. So there's no requirement that they have any relationship at all, and they can support all different types of authentication. I can do certificate-based authentication on one, TOTP on one, SAML on one, basic auth on another. None of that stuff on the Verse Android client is any sort of constraint here in terms of account interaction. As I flip between these, if I flip over here, I immediately am flipped into the calendar for another test user. Sorry, there's not any interesting data there. But I can switch between these different users, rapidly moving between whatever their data sets are, and able to then, if any sort of data is coming in for these accounts, I'll be getting notifications through my notification center, each segregated by their account-specific details. So I'll get mails for 3 of the accounts, and I'll be grouped by accounts and all that stuff. So multi-account capability on Verse Android Absolutely, great question. No requirements about them being related or being in domains or anything like that.
And let's take the opportunity to ask Corbin, same thing on iOS, or is it different?
Well, the multi-account support for Verse iOS is still in progress, but yes, when it comes out, it will pretty much be the same experience as Verse Android. We don't have any restrictions with domains and all that stuff. Although I would say in terms of authentication modes, we're currently locking out a limitation for only supporting HTTP authentication for our first phase of release, but we are currently working on our very best to also support other authentication modes for multiple account support. So the roadmap is there, and we're very excited to share it to our customer base as soon as possible.
Awesome. All right, that brings us to the end of the questions that we have currently from everyone. Pags, you got anything to add, or anybody else have anything else they want to share that they've thought of while we've been talking?
Well, I know we sort of, for Verse Web, we've been doing a lot of same time integration, more integration. Is that true, or can you say a little bit about how the integration is going with same time and Verse Web?
We've been doing a lot of same time integration with Nomad
Okay.
at the moment. That's been like the big push most recently. But the work in Nomad, of course, any enhancements there to same time APIs and so on, is something that then goes into the Verse backlog to potentially enhance that experience as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting with that we do a lot of shared code, and we actually had a little call this morning doing some Nomad testing, and something didn't work, and then I got the explanation of why it couldn't work, and then I said, well, Verse Web does it, so Bob's going to be following up with the Verse Web team to see how they do it, and it's nice that problems that were solved by Verse Web, they're able to share their solutions with the Nomad Web and vice versa when need be. So you guys do a great job with that. I just like to say I start my morning every morning when I get up. I grab my phone. I take a quick peek at my mail upstairs. I come downstairs. I open up my notes client. It crashes. I immediately open up Verse Web and I see how quickly my day is going to be going. I'm just kidding about the notes client has gotten a lot more stable, but there has been instances where restarting it and getting it there, the meeting's halfway over, but I can jump right into Verse Web and it gets me right in. So it was funny originally when we shipped Verse Web, people thought it was you had to choose one or the other. They didn't realize you could configure to run both, right? And then they said, oh, it's a nice backup to have. But and the comment I always say about Verse Mobile and Traveler is customers. So it just works. It just works. You guys do a great job, and it's a great way for people to get quick access, from mobile to their mail, and obviously a big thing. And love the multi-account support. Love hearing that we're gonna, looking into the delegation edition. So great job, guys, and keep up the good work.
Yeah,
John,
I'd like to
using
second that. Yeah,
yeah.
because I use multiple mobile. So I mean, I'm mainly an iOS guy, but I have gotten Android devices for work, so I can use all of our products. But I mean, I use Traveler when I want to say get my work calendar on my watch. But then I also use the Verse Web native client when I'm on my phone or on my tablet to access all of my mail and calendar. So it's like using a combination of things to get my data everywhere I need it to be.
Yeah, I second that. I got mainly Android on my phone, plus I got Verse Web, but I also have an iPad, so I'm using Verse in all the possible way that you can think of, and everything is working really fine. About the integration of Centime with Verse, a comment from me. I'm a consultant. I live out in the field with the customer. And every single customer that has Centime, I have integrated Verse with Centime. It's a no-brainer and works beautifully. So all the customers that I have that have both Verse, Verse Web, and Centime have the integration set up. It's really easy and it works like a charm. The last statement, if I may, John Paganetti, you stopped using daily builds of the client, so you avoid crashes. Stick to a stable release, not use daily builds.
Oh no, it's a lot stabler than it has been in the past. They've done a great job on quality. And one more thing I like to mention about Verse Web, because I do a lot of advocacy calls and customers say, I'd like to do this, and can we just make it look like a desktop app? And I said, have you tried it as a progressive web app? And they didn't even know about it, that they could install it as a progressive web app. And it was exactly what they were looking for. So their end users, don't feel like they're in a browser. It actually looks like a desktop application to them, and that's a little more palatable to some folks. And Nomad Web has it, and Verse Web has it as well. So great job on that too.
I have Nomad Web, I have Verse Web, and I have OnTime for calendaring, all as a progressive application. So it's definitely a nice way to work with that. Obviously, it cuts you down on the browser list. You can't use Firefox to do that, but it's a Firefox problem. It's not an HCL problem.
All right, I think with that, we will wrap this session up. I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody from HCL for participating today and sharing your knowledge. Thanks for folks for jumping in here and asking the questions. Very good discussion. Again, look for this to be posted to YouTube probably in the next day or two. And we'll look forward to our next Ask HCL Developer session coming up next month. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.